And I made a decision that I wasn't going to be a guy that only saw my kid on the weekends. So I left that job.
Welcome back to Frederick Advice Givers, episode 194. Joining us this week is my friend, loosely I call him a friend, Barry Weller with Barry Weller Properties, Barry Weller Enterprises. You kind of do it all with Radcliffe Realty.
I'm with Radcliffe Realty. Yeah,
You're with Radcliffe.
Broker with Radcliffe, and I do real estate sales.
You do everything, right?
I do real estate sales, a little bit of consulting with home builders, stuff like that.
So I've known Barry for about 7 or 8 years now. Really kind of grown to like him, to bounce ideas off of him. We bounce ideas off of each other with projects that we have going on. We're in Barry's new house now. Barry has a vast knowledge of new construction. Worked with Dries and Alsherman for years, right?
For years.
That's kind of the brief intro. So you're in real estate, but for our audience, Barry, that doesn't know you, who I imagine most everybody knows who Barry Weller is. He had the big sign out on
Route 26.
Big sign out on Route 26. So if you're ever out on that side of town, you saw this big Barry Weller. He didn't have the cigar in his photo, but big Barry Weller out there. So tell our audience who you are and a little bit of your backstory, Barry.
So I grew up in a little town called Union Bridge on the Carroll County, Frederick County line, and went to work for the Alsherman family when I was 21 years old, selling new homes. And I worked my way up through management, eventually became vice president of sales and marketing. And I was involved in that company from 1985 until the time it was sold.
Okay.
We grew the business from about 50 houses a year when I started to about 350 by the time it was sold. And then I spent 11 years as a sales and marketing executive with Dries Homes after they bought us, which was, it was a completely different experience going from a small family-owned, local business to a national builder. Learned a lot from that experience. And back in 2014, I think it was, I retired from that. I had done that for about 30 years. Retired from that and transitioned into the real estate business, general brokerage.
Residential.
Residential. I do about 30% land and commercial.
Okay.
But what I tell people is, residential pays the bills and the commercial, pays for the vacations.
So why did you choose to, see you're from Union Bridge area, why did you choose to settle down in the valley and then now on the other side of the mountain in Frederick?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is I had lived in Frederick. I was a child of divorce. My parents divorced. My mom moved to Frederick from Union Bridge. So I came up here and went to FCC. And after 2 years at FCC, I had to take a break to earn some money. I was going to go to Mount St. Mary's, finish my business degree. And I did some retail and different kinds of sales jobs, and I found this job working for Alsherman Homes selling townhouses. And I thought, man, that'd be a great job. And I think I was the third guy they offered the job to. It took me about 6 months. Bobby Marsh, who owns Marsh Realty now, was the sales manager at Alsherman back then.
I did not know
that.
And
it took me about 4 months to convince Bob to give me a crack at it. Because, here was a guy that had worked at Bell's Menswear, worked at J.C. Penney's. I had actually, for a short period of time, sold cemetery plots out of Rest Haven.
Okay.
And Bob always got a big kick out of that. But so that was my start in real estate, was selling, 6 foot deep plots of.
So where was your first neighborhood, your first development?
Colony Village. I finished out the last 4 or 5 buildings or so out in Colony Village.
Okay.
Went from there to Waterside, and when I went over to Waterside, we were selling garage townhouses, 3-story all brick for $78,000. And the non-garages were in the 60s. I bought my first house. I was 22 years old. I paid $68,000 for an N-unit non-garage townhouse out of Waterside.
So what's the main difference, this is just from my own personal knowledge, the main difference between resales, general brokerage, as opposed to new construction and working for a builder?
New home sales. New home sales is like working at a Lexus dealer. You know, as a builder, we would find somebody, we would hire them and train them, and we would set them up with their own store. We'd build this model home and outfit it, put $100,000 worth of decorating in there, and they were in charge of that store. So what I would tell people, and that's what they had to sell. Somebody came in, I had Waterside Townhouse, I had a Clover Hill Custom, wherever I was, and the builder's your client. So, you know, what I learned from that was that success was really dependent on putting your client first, understanding your client's needs. In my case, it was Osherman, what they were trying to achieve, and then plotting out a strategy to help them get there. With resale, you know, either the seller's your client or the buyer's your client. And, you know, sort of the world's your apple. If you're my buyer client, you know, I can take you anywhere and show you a product. So it's new home sales is much more of a sales job. General brokerage real estate is a customer service job.
You know, I've only done residential. I've done it for resale for about 17 years.
Right.
I don't think I personally could sit in a house 5 days a week or 4 days a week or 6 days a week. I enjoy going out and meeting people. I enjoy running to the grocery store.
Right.
You know, I enjoy taking the kids.
The freedom.
The freedom. But with that freedom, also you're tied to your phone. You're tied to your clients. Is that and you have people walking through your door at new home sales. They're coming to meet you. And yes, you've got to curate that relationship. But what's the biggest difference between the two in your mind? Would it be that?
It really is the difference between sales and customer service. New home sales, when you come in, the answer to every problem that client has is the job you're sitting on.
Right.
Your house is too big, that's no problem, I got a smaller one. Your house is too small, that's no problem, I got a bigger one. Because your job is to sell product for that seller. Right. Period. You'd liken it to sitting on an open house. When you're sitting in an open house and a customer comes in, right? They're not clients, they're customers. Right. The solution to every problem they have for that 2 hours is whatever house you're sitting in. Right. That's where your loyalty is owed.
Gotcha.
When you're doing the resale thing, it's you know, your obligation is to whoever that client is. That's the biggest. Really, when you think about what we do, the resale piece, there's very little salesmanship involved. There was a really experienced agent told me that one time. It was Phillips over at Remax. Told me, you know, when new agents come in, the biggest thing they have to learn is this isn't a sales job. It's either a marketing job if you're a lister, or it's a customer service job if you're handling a buyer. But it's really not. I would think about it. We never try to convince somebody to buy a property because we don't care which one they buy. We want them to buy whatever is going to fulfill their needs. It's their decision to make. When you're sitting in a new home model, the successful ones, the folks that really make the money, it's pure sales. It's pure sales.
And I always kind of hearken that to, I'm not in the sales business, I'm in the relationship business.
Correct. And that's one of the things that, you know, and to this day, I still have clients who you'll be working with them on resales, but then they'll go off and they'll buy a new house. And they're like, well, I really didn't need your help because, you know, they had a guy there. Well, that guy there
is 100% working for that builder.
And his job is to maximize the builder's sales and profits. So actually, you probably needed me there.
Even more so.
More than you needed me, you know, on a resale someplace.
Exactly.
Somebody that you know, that understands that business and can look out for the buyer's interest.
Well, and you know, I will say, you know, that side of the business better than anybody around. Doing it for
how long?
25 years?
Guy signing. I was 30 years, and for the last 15 of it, I was the guy signing the contract. So when you brought a customer in and worked with my salesperson, that contract came to me, and I was the guy that executed it.
Gotcha. All right, Barry. So the last two questions go back to a personal level. What's the last purchase that you splurged on for yourself or your family?
The last purchase I splurged on was probably that new TV over there in the corner.
So we're sitting in Barry's new house, right?
Yeah.
Who built this for you?
Young guy named John Grossnickel Construction. He's a young custom builder. Got a hell of a business. Builds about 40 units a year, which in the custom world is a lot.
Right.
And he built some houses up around my farm in Myersville that I saw and I really liked. So I found this lot down here outside of Frederick and hired him to build it for me because I've been too busy with my real estate to do any building right now. So when I went through with we call him the gadget guy, the guy that does the wiring and stuff, I said, you know what, I haven't bought a new TV in about 10 years. Why don't you? So he hooked me up with one of these fancy things on the wall and smart TV and all that stuff.
Awesome. It's pretty funny you go for the TV instead of the entire house. I mean, you did buy yourself a house, Barry.
I did buy myself a house, but this house was a downsize. So I didn't consider this a splurge. From the broken tree that I had up in Myersville, I had 26 acres and a big house, which was my family home. It was a home that where I raised my family. And I got divorced back in 2015 or so. And it was me and my son, my youngest son, there with me half the time. Right. And 26 acres and 5,000 square feet was just a bit, That was the splurge. That was a gorgeous, gorgeous place. But it was time to get rid of that and get something a little more manageable.
Gotcha. So Barry, what hobby, now those that know Barry, we need to keep this somewhat PC. What hobby or interest could you spend hours doing?
Well,
besides that cigar right there, maybe.
I could spend a lot of time smoking good cigars. A lot of time. Used to be riding horses. I don't ride much anymore. I'll once, maybe 2-3 times a year, I'll get out and ride a horse. Ronald Reagan said, "There's nothing better for the inside of a man than the outside of a horse." And if you haven't experienced, that lifestyle, it's fantastic. There really is nothing better. Today, my biggest hobby is I'm a big bird hunter. I like to shoot stuff that flies.
You have hunting dogs?
I have hunting dogs that are out in the garage being amazingly quiet. I've got 3 German short-haired pointers, and I belong to a club up in Gettysburg where we raise pheasants and we hunt, pheasants and quail and stuff. So, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be able to take a day or 2 off. I haven't been able to do it this year because I've been so busy, but I love to take a half a day and go out with the dogs and just walk through the fields. And it's mostly about the dog work. Right. These dogs are bred and trained to, find birds, point birds, retrieve birds, and it's my favorite thing in the world.
Awesome.
It's my favorite thing in the world.
All right, Barry, when you wake up in the morning, you've gone from basically a sales management job working with Dries and Osherman and Dries up until 2014. In the last 5 years, you've basically been an entrepreneur. You've had to procure your own business. Like, what's that motivation inside of you that keeps you going every day?
It's paying the bills.
Okay.
I tell people who aren't self-employed, when you're self-employed, every day you get up and you look for a job. Yeah. Every morning I wake up and I make my coffee and I walk down to the office and I start looking I either have listings and buyers to work on, or I start making phone calls and sending letters and doing marketing because, you're always planning your business out for that next quarter, that next 6 months. Yep. So it's that, and I really, really enjoy, one of the things at Osherman that we were proudest of, and not a lot of people remember this, but we were, when J.D. Power first started rating home builders in the Washington, D.C. area, they had done cars for years and years, and then they started rating home builders. In 2001, we were, out of the entire D.C. region, we were number 1 in customer satisfaction. Wow. And the culture at Osherman was very, very high quality product and a very, very high quality experience for the buyers. that's something that I've always carried with me, and I take a lot of pride. And you know what it's like when you have a client and they come back to you and they refer people to you. There's no better feeling in the world. We had a deal the day before Thanksgiving, repeat client, young kids, probably 30 years old. This was their second house with me, and it just, we had septic issues, we had this, we had that, and to be able to guide them through that process and deliver them out of that and get them to their next stage in life is enormously satisfying, enormously satisfying.
So what advice, and you and I meet, and we have lunch maybe once a quarter or something like that.
Yeah, one thing that I want to say about you, there's a handful, I didn't know you very well I didn't know you at all when I was in the home building business. And there have been just a handful of particularly young people, you, Trish Mills, who were very, very welcoming. When I came into this business, there were a lot of people kind of like, oh, there's that home building guy, he's sort of an asshole, we're not really sure about him. And you've been very, very kind and very welcoming and very helpful, because this has been a new business for me. So I appreciate that. Wow. That has meant a lot.
I appreciate that too. And, it came from pretty much anybody that I met said, that Barry Weller is a good guy. And that, it came from people that I trusted. So I knew that they weren't wrong. And any wisdom being in this 12 years more than you have, I'm always there. And I always kind of look at you as like an older brother. Like you give me like the world wisdom, and it's not always the best advice I get, but it's entertaining at least. You give me the world view, and then I'll tell you, the real estate kind of view. And and you mentioned Trish Mills, and she's somebody that I reach out to, probably on a quarterly, maybe a couple times a year, and say, especially back when she was doing short sales. Like she was a short sale queen.
Expert.
And Trish, what did you think about this? Or who do you call here? Do you have a contact at this bank? And Trish was always more than willing to help you out. And it's kind of cool with the community here in Frederick, because I have friends that are agents in other parts of the country, and Frederick's a pretty unique community in and of itself, where we don't mind helping each other out. Most of us.
It really is. It's very generous that way.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So what advice would you give somebody just starting out in the entrepreneurial world? Okay, what have you learned in the last 5 years? Advice you would give somebody?
Well, don't get discouraged. Focus. I learned this a long time ago. If you understand what the client's objectives are and you focus on getting them what they want, that's all that matters. Awards don't matter. Having the top sales numbers, plaques on the wall. At the end of the day, that's all bullshit. None of that matters. What matters is the relationships that you make along the way. What I remember from my home building career, what I'll remember from this career, won't be cashing big commission checks. It won't be getting sales awards. It won't be that stuff. It'll be the people and the relationships that I've developed along the way. To me, as a guy who's 20 years older than you probably, you learn what's important in life, and you also learn that, hey, I've got limits. Maybe when I was 40, I didn't think I did, but I can only work so many hours a day. I can only work so many hours a week, and I've got a kid. And when they put me in the ground, all those people I did that work for aren't gonna think about me the way my kids think about me, or the way my family thinks about me. So you learn a little bit about priorities. One of the things I admire about you is that you, at a very young age, have those priorities in line. I know, certain days, certain times, if I need you for something, I'm not even going to call you, because I know that's your family time. And when you live your life like that, people respect that.
Appreciate that. So Barry, in the last 3 years, what's a choice that you've made that's led you to where you are today? It could be personally, it could be business, it could be whatever. But like, what's a pivotal moment these last 3 years?
When I went through my divorce, that was 2013 to, we separated in 13, and it took a couple of years. That's an experience I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And my ex-wife now, we're very, very good friends. We get along great, and we talk all the time about the kids. But when you're going through what is essentially the end of a business relationship, things get a little ugly. Things get a little nasty. I made a decision. I was working down in Manassas. I was living in my farm in Myersville, and I was working down in Manassas.
This is for Drees?
For Drees. An hour and a half. And I had jobs all the way to Fredericksburg, Virginia. So I was in, my region for sales was up here all the way to Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Okay.
And I made a decision that I wasn't going to be a guy that only saw my kid on the weekends. So I left that job so that I would have free time. I was going to have my kid at least half the time, my youngest boy.
Right.
So that was what compelled me to leave that job and then to move into something else, because I knew that he's 16 now, so he was 12 or 13 when he was going through all that. And that's a time when a kid needs their dad, and that's a time, frankly, when this dad needed his kid. So I walked away from my career, and that was a decision that's the reason I'm sitting here doing this today. And the only regret that I had was that I hadn't done it 10 years sooner. Had I known, had I had less fear,
Right.
It's awful hard to walk away from a steady paycheck, especially when you're responsible for other people. But had I had less fear, I would have done it 10 years sooner and been better for it.
I didn't know that. You learn something every day. Good for you. Good for you. And I know you get to go to your Chase Plays baseball, and
He's a big baseball player,
Yeah.
great student. And I got an older boy who's Alex
He's a golf
Hoffman,
pro,
who's a golf
right?
pro over in Middletown. He was the state champion high school golf for 2 years out of 4 when he was at Middletown High School. So I got 2 really, really good boys.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Barry. So you probably know me almost as well as anybody that's done an interview here. I want to flip the script. I like asking questions. I like learning about people. Ask me a question. It could be business, personal, whatever you feel like asking. Just keep it PC.
Well, I'm not going to ask you that really. My question is, if you were going to do anything other than real estate, what would you do?
You know what? I really enjoyed this aspect. We had talked, before the interview that it's very, very few times you get to sit with somebody and have a 30, 45-minute conversation with your phones off. Okay, so I like learning about people. I like asking questions. What I would probably want to do or transition to, or maybe in the future, would be to help business owners, entrepreneurs kind of gain a greater foothold and help them. Because I think, I help my clients. You help your clients.
Right.
You help them for that 3, 6, 9 month period. Yeah, they're going to come back to you, and you stay in touch, and you'll send them, Christmas cards, or they have a baby and you'll send them flowers or whatever, and you're there as an ancillary relationship, and they're grateful to you. But if I could find a way to help business owners and entrepreneurs, small business owners and entrepreneurs, increase their foothold, increase their impact, pun intended, impact in their community, because I think once people can find a way to have more income, like what I've kind of always said is money doesn't change you, it amplifies who you are.
Right.
So if you're a good person and you do good and you do good with just making by, if you had more income, you could do a lot better.
A lot more good.
Right? If you're an asshole without
gonna
money,
be
you're
a
going to be a
bigger
bigger asshole with money, right?
And we've certainly seen
I'm sure
examples
you've-
of that. Yeah.
You see that at Home Building. You see that, as you have subs that run through projects. You've probably got subs that would bend over backwards for their employees and are great people, and then you have subs that are probably out of business because they were assholes, and they probably had $1 million businesses back when the economy was good.
And builders.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So helping others make a bigger dent in their community is probably what I would do. I don't know how successful it'll be because I really do enjoy real estate. I really do, Barry. I think the market's changing. I think the dichotomy of a real estate agent is changing. I think we've got 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years left before the online marketplace, like travel agents,
Right.
like travel agents are going to be gone by the wayside. Yeah, you've got to still be there to open the doors and get people in houses, but with the business models that are out there now,
less value. And I fortunately, I don't have that many more years. I mean, I want to go hard for another 10 years,
right,
and then really dial it back.
Right.
But I think where we can be of value to people is helping companies find land, these commercial deals.
Right.
We're starting to transition, probably next year it'll be, 30-35% of my business will be commercial, including land. Yeah. Right. So, but because I think you're right, I think there's going to come a point in time where what people can do more and more. I mean, there's going to, you can get a doctor's appointment online now.
Yeah, exactly.
For God's sake, what makes us so special? If people, are going to the doctor online, they're going to need less and less of what we have to offer.
You're exactly right.
We're going to have to. Yeah, I don't think we're going to become extinct, but I think it's going to change for sure.
It's definitely going to change. All right, Barry. So, what failure or loss, and this might go back to what we were just talking about. What failure or loss has helped mold the person that you are today?
Professionally and personally, it would be the loss of my marriage. And
right.
I don't look at that as a failure in the sense of the relationship between my ex-wife and I, because frankly, anybody that knew us, when the marriage ended, the question was never, oh my God, how did that fall apart? The question was always, how did they stay together so long? So, right. She's a great person, but I was single until I was 37 years old. And there was a reason for that. Because I liked being single. And then when I decided I wanted to have a kid, I was almost 40. And so that whole experience, what I learned was, and I guess where it was a failure was, that I felt like I had made this commitment to the family, particularly to my kids, that I was going to raise them in this family environment.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I was not able to fulfill that obligation. And, in a lot of ways, it forced me to be a better father.
Right.
I think if you talk to my ex-wife, she would say, Barry was always a great provider, but since we've been divorced, he's become a really great father. And that's probably something that I wasn't. We had very traditional rules. I went out and brought home the bacon, and she took care of everything else. And going through that put me in a position where I was able to spend a lot more time with my son and get to know him in a way and develop a relationship that otherwise I wouldn't have. So, at the end, everything kind of works out for the best, I think.
Cool. So Barry, last question. Where do you see yourself in 3 years and then in 10 years?
Well, in 10 years, either one. I see myself here in this house I just moved into, and in 3 years, hopefully I'll be driving around to wherever my kid's going to college and watching him play baseball. And
you think that's in the cards for Chase?
Yeah,
baseball?
I think he would. Yeah, I think he will make a decision about where to go to college based on where he'll be able to play baseball of some sort, whether that's Division I or whether it's Division III or whatever it is.
Is he a junior or senior this year?
Junior this year.
Junior.
And he loves it. He just loves it. He's dedicated to it. So the next 3 years, we'll be getting him into college and going through that process. And I'm committed to building this business and really going at it hard for the next 10 years. I enjoy it, and my health is still good and all that. 10 years from now, I'd like to be in a place where maybe I work 3 days a week and I don't go at it quite as hard, and I get out and, shoot a few more birds and
There you go.
that kind of thing.
So that leads me into how would the listeners, viewers find you, get a hold of you, learn more about Barry Weller Properties?
BarryWellerProperties.com, buy FrederickHomes.com. My office is right down on Market Street, across the street from Volt, 233 North Market. And my cell phone number is 301-471-8830. So I'm the easiest guy in the world to get a hold of.
Awesome. And if you have development needs, if you're a small builder looking for somebody to represent you, if you are looking at new home builds, you definitely want to have somebody represent you, an agent represent you if you're buying a new construction. Right?
Absolutely.
Because you know all the tricks of the trade that the builders,
Yeah,
that the
you know,
builders do.
and-
You know
and-
where they can negotiate and where they can't
Where
negotiate.
they can and where they can't, where you can kind of strike a deal that works well for both parties. And on listing of residential real estate, we have a fantastic team. We offer staging. We've got, and I know you agree with me, we've got the best photographer in the area because we use the same one you use. So, on the residential listing side, we do a really, we've got a great team, and we really do a good job for folks.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So that was Barry Weller, my buddy, episode 194 of Frederick Advice Givers, and we are out.